The next thing I know, I was in hell. And when I was in hell, I was in a certain part of hell called the pit, which is mentioned in Revelation. And the Bible also says that the pit is a place of utter darkness. And I totally agree with that. I didn't see the lake of fire. I didn't see people burning. I didn't see demons. I just saw this utter darkness the whole time I was there. Um, but the first thoughts came to me later. But before I had any thoughts about anything, the first knowings, I had four knowings, things that I had absolutely 100% clarity on. One, I knew I was in hell. Without a shadow of a doubt, there was no question about where am I, what is this place. It was none of that. It was like I knew I was in hell. Number two, I knew I deserved to be there. I knew there was nothing I could say, think, or do to get out of there. I knew it was just and fair that I be there. The other thing I knew was I was never, ever, ever, ever coming out. It was an absolute certainty. I knew I was never coming out. So I knew where I was, why I was there, I deserved to be there, and I was never, ever coming out. So I never said the whole time I was in here, I never said, Jesus help me, God help me, get me out of here. This is not fair. God help me, I forgive me, I repent, whatever. I never said anything like that. I never said anything because, again, I knew that I was done. As far as I was concerned, God had put me in hell. I died. God put me in hell, and He forgot. He forgot I was there until Judgment Day, I guess. But as far as I was concerned, He He just forgot I ever existed, and I was going to spend all eternity in hell. Now, those were knowings. The first thought that came to my mind was I looked around and I saw the darkness. And I can tell you, in this place called the pit of hell, light has never, ever been invented. No light of any spectrum, none. Light has never, ever entered into this place. This place was so dark, it. I looked at it and I went, oh, because I couldn't believe the darkness like that existed in the universe. I couldn't believe it. It was unimaginable. I tell people you can put me in a steel vault, 10 feet thick on all sides, buried 100 feet under the ground, and it would still be more light in that vault than it was in the pit of hell. I mean, this place was the opposite of light to the nth degree. That was the first thought that came to my mind. The second thought was I thought about my old life here on earth, and I had a total sense of angles and degrees and mathematics. And I tell people when you pass from this earth, you get a wealth of knowledge just comes into your mind, your brain, and you just know things that you always had questions about, or technologies, or theorems, or things that you just wondered about, and you just know these things. You just know. So I had a total sense of north, south, east, west, degrees and angles. And I knew that at a 45-degree angle from where I was standing, and I knew I was facing west. I don't know why, but I knew I was facing west. And I knew at a 45-degree angle from where I was standing, there was this dimension, this earth, this reality. But I also knew that there was no way I could get there. There was no way out. There was no way I could travel from here to that 40, along that 45-degree angle and get back to here. It was impossible. It was absolutely impossible. And again, I knew God had forgotten about me, and I knew I was never coming out. The next thought came to me was eternity. And eternity was no longer a concept to me. It was reality. It was absolute reality. I tell people it's like You look at the water in a swimming pool, and you imagine what it's going to be like once you jump in that water, if you jump in that water. Eternity is like that. You can imagine what eternity will be like. You can try to imagine what it's going to be like, but you don't know until you jump into eternity. And the whole issue of death, life and death, was over. I was eternal. I knew I was eternal. That was another knowing. I knew I was eternal, but I also knew I was going to spend the rest of eternity by myself in this darkness. Now, it might have been demons standing right there in front of me, as this close. I don't know, because again, there was nothing to see except this darkness. But as far as I was concerned, I was going to be alone in that darkness forever. I mean forever. And the lake of fire and final judgment day didn't cross my mind. God spared me that, thank God. I'm glad I didn't see the lake of fire and people burning, torturing, and all that. I'm glad, thank God, I didn't see that. But again, I thought I was there for eternity anyway. I thought, okay, this is it. And imagine being locked in utter darkness for all eternity by yourself. I mean, wow, that's just torture in itself beyond measure to me. And the next thought came to me was the realization of what it felt like to be 100% separated from God's presence forever. In all my life, I had never been so down that I felt like I wanted to commit suicide. But at that moment, when I realized this awful, horrendous feeling of being separated from God, it was the worst feeling that words cannot even describe. God has made us for Him, and there's a part of us that's made by God that can only be filled by God. And I tell people, as long as you're in this reality, you can worship Satan, you can be a murderer, a serial killer, baby rapist, whatever. You can be the worst imaginable person you could ever want to be. But as long as you're in this reality, you have the presence of God around you at all times. Now, God can separate from you in this reality also. But even then, you still have some of the benefits of being here, which is God is everywhere around you, even if you don't feel it. Or even if He separates from you, He's still there. And then you have heat and cold and warmth and love, opportunity to love. You have, opportunity to prosper in this earth, in this reality. But when you cross the other side into the hell realm, there's none of that. And then in the pit, there was none of that and no light. So it was even worse. So now, again, I'm trapped in this utter darkness for all eternity and totally separated from God. And people say, well, what's the worst part of your hell experience? And I tell people, the worst part of my hell experience by far, nothing can compare to it, was the total 100% separation from God. I wanted to feel God's presence so bad. I would have done anything, and I mean anything, to feel His presence for just that much, for all eternity. If someone would have said to me, you know what, if you run in that direction, or that direction, or that direction, or that direction for a literal, physical million years in human time, on earth time, and at the end of that million years, you'll feel God's presence for that much, for 1 second. You'll never feel it again for all eternity, but you'll feel it for that 1 second. I tell people I would have been running with a smile on my face for a million literal freaking years. And being in eternity, I could have done it. And I would have done it. I would have been overjoyed to feel God's presence for one tiny second. After that second was over with, I'd be back down to totally done. But that would be something that I could look forward to feel God's presence. And I thought about my family here. That was the next thought I had. Was actually, I had this thought before I thought about God. I thought about my family, my friends, my girlfriend at the time, my career that I was chasing at the time. And I'm tight with my family, my mother, my brothers, my sister. We're all tight. And but I felt it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything. I mean, it meant nothing when I was sitting in hell. I mean, the love I had for my mom and my sister and my brothers and even my father felt like nothing. It meant nothing. Less than the dirt under my feet right now. It meant nothing. The only thing that meant anything was my total separation from God. That's the only thing that mattered. That's the only thing that I cared about. And the fact that I was going to be in this darkness forever. So, I'm coming to the end now. But at that point, I wanted to die. And like I said, I've never been the type of person who wanted to commit suicide. Never been that down. But at that moment, for the first time in my existence, I understood why people commit suicide. Because they feel there's no hope. Period. And that's a great lie of the devil. Because as long as you're in this human realm, in earth, you have an opportunity for whatever the problem is. I don't care what the problem is. I don't care what the problem is. You have an opportunity that God can fix it. You can be delivered. You can be saved from it. God can help. But like I said, in that realm, there was no such thing as hope. And so I wanted to die, but I couldn't because I was in eternity. Again, life and death. That whole thing passed over. That was gone. That was done. And I wanted to die so bad, but I couldn't. And I realized that I couldn't take the mental, spiritual strain of being in this hell, separated from God, alone in this darkness forever by myself. I couldn't deal with it. So I made the decision to do the one thing I knew I could do. And I knew I could do this. I knew I could let my mind just snap. I knew I could let myself go so insane that I wouldn't even know or care that I was in this darkness for eternity by myself. I knew that I could make that happen, let that happen, even make it happen. Because the stress and strain on my being, my mind at that moment was so great. I knew I could let myself just snap and go crazy. I mean, literally insane to the fullest extent for eternity. And I tell people, I believe that there's no person in hell that's not 100% insane, especially those burning in the lake of fire. If they are not insane, I don't know how they did it, how they do it. But so anyway, I made the determination. That's what I'm going to do. That's the only thing I could do. So when I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna let myself go insane, and I was serious. I meant it. All of a sudden, I felt this electricity coming through my toes, and it started to go up my toes, like a tingly, like it felt like electricity going up my toes, up my legs, up my waist, up my chest, and it got right here where my neck was. But I'm saying this slowly, but it was quicker than that. It was instantly. But when it got to right here, and I knew that once it got from here to here in this part of my spiritual being, because I had a spiritual body, I could feel my body. I couldn't see it, but I could feel I had arms and legs and hands and feet and everything I have now. I could feel it. I could feel all the parts of my body again, but I couldn't see it. But when the insanity got to right here, and I believe now, sometimes I think it might have been demonic demons coming up my body. I don't know whether it was demons or just my determination, but again, once that feeling got to right here, and I'm talking about quickly, like that fast, I knew that in the next instant, quicker than that, it would be in my brain, my mind, and I would be insane forever. And the only thing that could change that would be God Himself, and I knew that was going to happen. So when it got to right here, so it went like this. And when it got to right here, I heard this sound, though, and it was the only sound I heard the whole time I was in hell. The only sound I heard the whole time I was there was the sound of a rushing wind that was coming at that 45-degree angle where I knew Earth was. At that angle, I heard this wind come, and it sounded just like that, and it fell on me from head to toe, like just like that. And the Bible says that sometimes the Holy Spirit comes as the sound of a rushing wind. So I was like, wow, that was exactly what was written in the Bible. But the Holy Spirit came and fell on top of me just like that. At that moment, I didn't know it was the Holy Spirit. I didn't know what it was. But when it fell on me, the next thing I know, I'm back here on Earth, and I'm lying in my bed, and it's morning. It was 12 o'clock when I laid down. It must have been like 8 o'clock when I opened my eyes, and I looked around and I saw the sun shining through the window. I heard the birds chirping outside. I looked around the room and again realized that I'm back here on Earth. And I heard the voice of Jesus speak to me. And He said, as clear as I'm speaking to you right now, He said, if you do that again, that's where you're going to end up. He said it just like that. And I said, Lord, I will never do that again. And I haven't. And I tell people, you can put a gun to my head and say, hey, you know what, deny what happened, or I'll pull the trigger and kill you. I'll say pull the trigger, because there is no way I can deny what happened. And again, grown men came to me at 2 different times and said they were going to kill themselves one night. And the only thing that stopped them from killing themselves was that testimony. And again, I've given that testimony on international radio and television and on radio here in Los Angeles, and just church groups around the country and churches. And I've never had a person come to me and tell me they didn't believe what I told them was true. 100% true. So that's my testimony going to hell. I hope it helps somebody. But if I would say anything about that, I would say the main point I would like to stress is that no matter what happens in your life, in this reality, there's always hope. And keep your ego in check. All right, God bless. See you next time.